Namaste friends, welcome to the MOOC course on Buddhist philosophy. The topic of today's lecture is Schools of Buddhism, Continuity and Harmony. The learning objective of this module is to have introductory understanding of schools of Buddhism and to see that how the development of Buddhist thought in different schools took place and to see the continuity in the development of entire Buddhist philosophical tradition. As you all know that philosophy of Buddhism occupies a prominent place in Indian philosophical tradition. In fact, it has been one of the identity markers of Indian civilization. First important point about Buddhism is that it is not a single philosophy, rather a bunch of philosophies. Its root lies in unsystematic and continuous tradition of orally transmitted sermons of Buddha. Disciples of Buddha codified his teachings and compiled them as Pitakas, namely Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka and Abhidhamma Pitaka. These three Pitakas are the codified foundations of Buddhist philosophies. Buddhism developed through continuous attempts of Buddha's disciples to determine the true meaning of his teachings. As you know that the religious divisions of Buddhism is known as Hinayana and Mahayana Buddhism. Let us take first Hinayana Buddhism. The philosophical evolution of Hinayana Buddhism took place as a result of innumerous disagreements among the followers. In the beginning, four principal sanghas were founded which are known as Sarvastivada, Mahasangika, Sammitiya and Sthavirvadi. Their mutual disagreements were not as much as philosophical as regarding codes of conduct and spiritual or meditational practices. The philosophical development of this entire period happened in the form of two independent schools of Buddhist philosophy, namely Vaibhashika and Sautrantika. Vaibhashika school considers Abhidharma Pitaka as most authentic Buddha Vachanas. There are two commentaries or tikas covering all these texts, namely Mahavibhasha and Vibhasha. In fact, this school was named Vaibhashika because of its acceptance of Vibhasha as the only pramana. The Vaibhashika school adopts realist and pluralist approach, originally based on Dharma Pravichay, that is mindful analysis of consciousness. Sautrantikas do not accept Abhidharma Pitaka as Buddha Vachanas. They take sutras like Arthavinishchay in Sutta Pitaka as the core of Buddha's teachings. They consider Sutta Pitaka as pramana. By making insights of classical Sautrantikas foundation, later Buddhist philosophers like Dingnaga and Dharmakirti developed Buddhist logic and epistemology. In fact, the tradition of Buddhist thought beginning with the Dingnaga is the later extension of Sautrantikas. However, this extension included not just the development of Sautrantika's view, but Yogacharas and even Madhyamika's view as well. Let us talk about Mahayana Buddhism. The Mahayana Buddhism philosophically originated and evolved through some fundamental modifications. Herein, the conception of Buddha, the human, was modified into Buddha the Divine One. Mahayana followers highlighted those sutras which are pertaining to universal liberation rather than personal liberation. They saw the ultimate culmination of Buddha Vachanas in a pure non-dualist Advaivadi philosophical approach. Mahayani Buddhists accept only Vaipulya Sutras as containing true meaning of Buddha Vachanas. Now we come to a major school of Mahayana Buddhism, that is Madhyamika school. The philosopher who developed it as an independent school of Buddhist philosophy was Nagarjuna. The Mahayana philosophy was called Madhyamika because it negated two extreme viewpoints and advocated a middle path. The view of Madhyama Marga avoids two extreme views, absolute reality and absolute unreality of things, and asserts that everything exists in a conditional way. Buddha states that one who sees Pratitya Samutpada sees Dhamma or Dharma. However, Pratit Samutpada does not refer to any real law. It appears to be real law due to ignorance or avidya. All phenomena appear to be occurring, existing and perishing. The so called real world is actually nothing but relativity. The principle of dependent origination only suggests that existence of a thing is conditional upon other things. Since the very being of the world is relative, it has no essence or nature of its own. Therefore, Mahayana philosophers like Nagarjuna and later on his commentator Chandrakirti interpreted Buddha Vachanas as defining the reality or world as essenceless, that is Nissubhava. Now we come to another school of Mahayana Buddhism, that is Yogachara Vijnanavada. Since this tradition gives emphasis on yoga practices for the attainment of nirvana, it is called Yogachara, and the term Vijnanavada expresses its philosophical approach. Among Mahayana Sutras, there are some sutras which are opposed to Madhyamika interpretation of Mahayana Sutras. These are Dashabhumika Sutra, Lankavatara Sutra, and Prajna Paramita Sutras, which presented Yogachari interpretation of Mahayana Sutras. Such interpretation was given by Maitreyinath, Asanga, and Vasubandhu. Yogachara Vijnanavad holds that consciousness only is the ultimate reality. The so called Vyavharika or empirical world is only the ideal representation of Vigyapti of consciousness. Yogachara philosophy interprets the process of consciousness involving its representations as Vijnana, Parinamavada. Now, according to Yogachara philosophers, Buddha's teachings aim to make humans self-aware of such subconscious bondage, and accordingly one can get liberated through yogic practices. As soon as consciousness is free from beginningless desire, it becomes free from illusion that world is outside and free from the compulsion of knowing the world from outside. Yogacharins call this kleshavarana and geyavarana. At the end, consciousness resorts into its pure non-dual nature. This state of consciousness is enlightenment, and attaining it is the Yogachara ideal of Mahayana.